From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode on priorities. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, really not the priorities themselves, but rather how to plan our priorities so that they actually are priorities, right? A lot of times I think we kind of get caught up in the time management, quote unquote, mindset of trying to manage our time. But really, we can't manage time. You can only manage what you do with it, right? We all have the same amount of time. We all have the same 24 hours a day. It's just a question of what are we doing with it? And are we using it in the best way that we want to in order to accomplish our priorities, in order to reach our priorities? So, I talk about this a lot in my book, Prime Time: The Power of Effective Planning. And really that I call that a workbook almost because there are some worksheets in there. There's some exercises that you work through in order to get the most out of that book. And I tell you right up at the front of the book, I'm like, if you're just going to read the book, it's not going to do you any good. Right? The concepts and the principles in the book only help you if you apply them. And that's the whole point of the worksheets. And I know I don't always love books like that. I don't always love books that say, stop and think about this, stop and list out this, stop and do this worksheet. But really, they can be really powerful when we do that because it gives you kind of that head start on applying the material that you're learning. So I wanted to just drill down into this topic. To me, there's always just sort of a natural couple of points in the year that we can maybe take a step back and reevaluate. And this podcast is coming out in, the last week of August. It's heading into September, and we're just a few weeks away from the fourth and final quarter of 2022. And I know it seems like we were just blinking our eyes and it was January 1st. And now here we are headed into September, the last 4 months of the year, heading into the last quarter in just a couple of weeks. And suddenly it's kind of time to take a step back and go, oh, am I really on track for where I wanted to be this year? Are there still goals that I set for myself that I didn't achieve? And to me, the turning of the seasons is kind of a natural time for that reflection where you can really just sit back and kind of reevaluate. The end of the year, the first of the year, naturally, we all tend to do that kind of reflection. But then as we transition, right, from summer into fall, it's a great time to kind of take that step back. And, we're not looking for perfection, it doesn't exist, but looking for awareness of where we are today and where we want to be tomorrow, right? And just kind of that assessment, because that's going to help us plan and prepare our priorities rather than rather pro- prioritizing our planning, right? And so that's a key difference. So I do have just an assessment tool. It's in the book, of course, but you don't have to get the book. If you just want to start with the assessment tool, you can find that on my website. It's just a free download. You don't have to put your email in. You don't have to sign up for anything. If you'll go to riastory.com/time management, all one word, riastory.com/time management. And there is a button there that says download the free personal life assessment. Again, no email required, nothing like that. I'm not trying to spam you with emails, but really you can just download the tool. And it's just a very simple but effective way to raise our level of awareness relative to where we are in the four different dimensions of life. And there are four, right? There's the spiritual dimension or values-based dimension, the heart dimension, if you want to call it that. That's what I like to call it, where we think about connection to a spiritual source, relationship. Are we practicing our spiritual practices and our beliefs, living in accordance with those spiritual values and, renewed in that sense, in that dimension? And then there's the mental or emotional dimension of life where our personal growth is, right? Where we're tapping into that emotional growth and, decisions there are living into our purpose and our potential and making sure that we have time for personal renewal and recreation, right? And so that we can go on and fill our tank back up, so to speak. And then there's the physical dimension of life, which is, of course, is our physical environment, our body health. A couple of questions in that section relative to eating or sleep habits or physical environment. Does my physical environment reflect the harmony that I want? Is it just kind of a cluttered mess, or is it organized like I want it to be? Can I find things? That sort of thing. And the last dimension is the relationship dimension, the social dimension. And there, a couple of questions on um, relationships. Are they positive relationships? Are they serving me? Am I resolving conflicts? Do I live up to commitments that I make to other people? Would other people describe me as positive, etc.? So there again, just I think it's got 10 questions in each section, and you just rate yourself. There's no wrong or right answers here. You really just rate yourself. It's a tool, it's an awareness tool, reflection tool. Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. Am I where I want to be relative to, where I am and where I want to go? Am I where I want to be? And that's the key question. No one can tell you if you're in the right place at the right time. You have to decide that. But it's relative to where you want to go. And so, just again, a quick, few minutes exercise to just reflect on that and go, oh, okay, maybe I want to make sure that this last quarter of the year coming up, I'm going to focus more attention on this area of life. I'm not where I want to be in this area of my life, and it needs a little attention, right? It needs a little intention. And those can be very powerful things when we are aware of them, right? We can bring them to our focus. Now, here's the reason that's important is because it really comes down to values based living, right? Majority of people in our society today are overcommitted, overstressed, overscheduled, and under executing. We talk a lot about a work life balance, but that assumes that there's life in there somewhere. And that really comes down to the values that we have. Because a lot of people are never getting to the life part, they're just too tired to enjoy it. And a lot of times we say, well, you should manage your time better, but you cannot manage time. You can only manage what you do within time. And the solution is to schedule your priorities rather than prioritizing the schedule. I love Zig Ziglar's quote that says, lack of direction, not lack of time, is the problem. We all have 24-hour days, right? You are the one in control of your life. Or if you're not, then you're the only one who can get control of your life. And so I really talk about a lot in this book, Primetime, The Power of Effective Planning, how to set and achieve the goals that are important to you, how to set the boundaries and increase your effectiveness. Because we don't want to just go through the motions every day. Once we go through that step of increasing our awareness and going, okay, I'm not where I want to be in this dimension of life, in this area of life. And the benefit to kind of reflecting on this or evaluating this more than once a year is the sooner you identify the fact that you're not where you want to be, the sooner and easier it is to correct it, right? It's just about to be September as I record this podcast. You're going to get it just the last couple days of August, but it's going to come out just before September starts. And why wait? Why would you wait another 4 months to make significant changes in your life? Get a head start. Right now's the time to get a head start on everybody else who's going to wait till January 1st. They're just throwing in the towel on the last quarter of this year and saying, oh, I'll start again in January. No, just don't wait to course correct. Why would you wait to course correct? Because the sooner you course correct, the quicker you get back on course, the sooner you reach your destination, right? Whatever that step is, whatever that stepping stone is. So, a couple of things to think about. And when I talk about value based living, right, it's living according to your values. And so, for example, a lot of us would talk about wanting to be healthy, but it's only value based living if having great health is a value that we've adopted and we're living in accordance with it. right? So it's not enough to just say you want to be healthy. It's actually, what are you doing to maintain that health? Are you making sure that you're getting enough sleep? Are you making sure that you're eating what you need to be eating? Um, we all know the things that we can do to be more healthy. And if you don't know, you can Google it. I mean, all of the information on health is out there. And I mean, it's not rocket science, right? We know that we should drink more water and drink less other stuff, eat more vegetables, eat less other stuff, right? There's no secrets when it comes to that. Those are just foundational principles. But maybe it's not health. Maybe it's relationships in your life you want to improve. Maybe it's your personal growth. Maybe you're very satisfied with where you are in your career, but you want to continue to grow in some way. And it's important to remember that that's growth of character, not just growth of competency, right? Competency is the tasks, the knowledge, the technical abilities. Character is who we are as a person. And it's hard. It's not like you can just sit down one Saturday morning and say, okay, I'm going to grow in the next hour, right? Intentional personal growth requires reading and reflecting and thinking, certainly. Sometimes it's reflecting on the things that we don't really like to, experiences that have shaped us, circumstances around us, thinking about how and where we got to where we are and what choices should have been different, what defining moments led up to this place, right? That's a part of the growth process. And growth absolutely is a process. So, back to my point about values based living, you've got to first know your values and then do some honest reflection. That's where the self assessment tool comes in. Am I living where I want to be? Am I living in this value in the way that I want to? And, once you have just been honest with yourself about that, there's no right or wrong way to go about it. It's just raising that level of awareness relative to, hey, this is an area of opportunity for me. Because we all wear different hats and we all have many roles as an individual. We all have different parts to play, and how and where we show up in those different roles and those different parts is largely influenced by how centered, how grounded we are as a person. And that really comes back down to that principle centered living, right? Living in accordance with planning our priorities instead of just letting everyone and everything else dictate our schedule. And then running around all the time going, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. Really, we have time for whatever we make time for. And that's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, right? We all have time for the things we want to make time for. It's just really a question of what's most important. I'll tell you what the three ways that you can tell what's most important to a person is checkbook, calendar, and conversation. What are they spending money on? What are they talking about? And what are they spending time doing, right? What's in their checkbook? What are they spending money on? What's on their calendar? What do they spend time doing? What are they talking about? That conversation piece of saying, okay, if this is really important to you, you're going to talk about it to other people. It was funny. I was reflecting the other day on a lot of the people that I run with and our different running groups. It's interesting how much our conversation centers around nutrition, and that's not a bad thing. It's just reflective of the fact that people who are investing in their health tend to be talking about it, right? We talk about different nutrition and how we can eat better to fuel our bodies in our workouts. And but it struck me as interesting that this principle is absolutely true, right? A bunch of people who are proactive with health, but they spend a lot of time talking about nutrition because it's a big part of being healthy. So, for example, from a leadership standpoint, if one of your personal goals or personal missions is to develop your leadership skills, you should spend some time reading leadership books. It's much like a math teacher who never studies math. A leader should be studying leadership, right? So if that's your role, if you're wanting to increase your influence in some dimension, if you're wanting to develop your leadership skills, you've got to be intentional about developing that. And if that's your priority, then you have to be scheduling time for that to happen, right? A lot of times our growth habits don't happen to us. We have to go make them happen. Like, you've never had a book walk up to you and hit you over the head by itself and say, "Hey, read me." Like, you had to go act on that. You had to go pick the book up and you had to read it. You had to think about it and you had to do it. You've never had exercise just come and hit you over the head, right? It's something you have to go do. And a lot of times it doesn't feel important in the moment. It is important. It may not be urgent. It may not have to be done this moment, but it has to be done. And that's where a lot of times it's very easy for us to push these things away if we're not intentionally reflecting on where we are, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there. So, there again, a little bit of a soapbox moment for me, but I really think it comes down to being intentional with our time, with our energy. It's a stewardship to me. We're given the same amount of days or same amount of hours in a day as everyone else, but are we stewarding that well? And when we find ourselves spinning our wheels on things that don't serve us, activities that aren't in alignment with our purpose, our personal mission, then it's time to really reflect, does this have a place in my calendar, in my life? Because energy is limited, right? Time is limited. You can't pop down to Walmart and buy more time if you waste it. You can't get it back. So it really, whenever we think about whatever success looks like for us, we have to be intentional that we're not just squandering, right? If you're surely there is time for all of us for recreation, for renewal, for relaxation. But if you are binge watching Netflix for 16 hours on the weekend and then complaining on Monday that you're not getting ahead in life, I'm going to just give you some hard truth and saying you're not stewarding your time in a way that's gonna help you get ahead in life, right? That might be your 16 hours that you could have been reading books or watching TEDx talks or listening to podcasts or whatever it is. But instead you chose to use that binge watching Netflix. Now I'm not bashing TV. We all need some time for renewal or recreation, and it's okay. Maybe you want to sit down and watch a movie. Mac and I like to watch a movie on the weekend together. It's kind of our thing. But we don't watch movies all day, every day on the weekend, right? So that's where those things have to have the place in our calendar that they should, right? They should be proportionate relative to where we are and where we want to go. I spend a lot of time reading personal growth books and memoirs and autobiographies because I want to learn from other people. I spend a good bit of time reading. But that's how I learn, and that's one of the things that helps me grow, so then I can in turn do things like write other books and do podcasts and share some of what I've been learning, right? It's expanding my mind so that I can continue to refine those ideas and learn new things and learn new perspectives, and then in turn share those with you, right? So you see where I'm going with this. My point here is just to encourage you. It's a natural time for reflection. Take some time over the weekend if you can. Sit down and maybe go through that awareness exercise for yourself. Am I where I want to be physically? Am I where I want to be mentally? Where where am I spiritually in relation to where I want to be? Am I out of harmony? Because the four dimensions of life are sort of like a wheel. And just like any other wheel, if it's not smooth, if it's not in balance, it's not going to roll very well. If you're out of balance in one area of life, it won't take long. You can get away with it for a little while, but it won't take long before that starts to bleed over and affect the other areas of life. You've heard the cliche about the super successful businessman, but he's had a heart attack at 50 because he's neglected his health for so long. He's high stress, he's not eating well, and then suddenly not exercising, and then suddenly his health gives out, right? So just because there's success in one dimension of life doesn't mean that we are as a whole successful as an individual, right? We have to make sure that we are in balance and harmony. And yeah, you can get away without it a little bit for a little while, but sooner or later, if that wheel is not smooth, it's not round, it's not in harmony, it's not going to roll very far. And then you get a flat tire, right? So there again, just to wrap up with some thoughts on that and yeah, encouraging you to take control of your life. You're the only one who can do it. It's time to just stop simply going through the motions and create the life you want instead of the one that came to you by default. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.